It's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share with you the February block of the month. This is a really fun pinwheel block. You'll get to make 4 different pinwheels, and then there's also a secondary pattern that you can see that is formed with the accent fabrics. I've made my large block and my little 6-inch block, and I'm going to give you tips for the 6-inch block because it has some really small pieces, and I'm also going to just kind of walk you through making the block using the 12-inch block. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with the February block of the month. I have the Christmas one version, the 6-inch block, already finished, and I'm going to walk you through the 12-inch block. So if you look at it, there are a lot of little pieces for this 6-inch block. I don't want to discourage anybody, but I am going to give you some tips if you're going to make the 6-inch block. I'll just kind of quickly turn it over so you can see what I mean. There are a lot of half square triangles and a lot of pieces, but I have some great tips for you for that. And actually let's get started with the tips for the 6-inch block. So if you're going to make the 6-inch block, I really recommend using this Primitive Gatherings 3/4 inch finished triangle paper. And I have some of it actually in my shop, and you can also get it from the Primitive Gatherings website. But this triangle paper is very helpful when you're making half square triangles that are this small. I'll show you, I have some of the pieces left over. Each sheet does 2, 4, like 18 half square triangles, and I didn't need all of them. And so I wanted to tell you also, when you don't use all of the half square triangles from triangle paper, just keep it together like this. They're sewn, and I can use them later just by cutting them up, but they're going to be easier to handle in this sheet form than just having little tiny, this is actually 2. So I have those, but I wanted to give you another option. If you want to do the 6-inch block and you don't want to mess around with all of these teeny tiny half square triangles, the other option is, because there are 4 quadrants in this block and they're all exactly the same, you could make just 1 quadrant from the 12-inch block and use it for your 6-inch block. So that gives you an idea if you are doing the 6-inch blocks and yet you really don't want to use all these small pieces. It will still look super cute in combination with the other 6-inch blocks that are going to be in the quilt. Okay, so that is just a little bit of information on the 6-inch block, and now we will move ahead to kind of working on the 12-inch block. Now I've already made 3 of the sections so that we'll just have 1 that we'll need to make, and they're all identical. So all of the 12-inch block sections are identical. It's just a fun little pinwheel made with half square triangles. You do have some squares in there. There are 4 squares in each block, so that helps a little bit. And the outer half square triangles are all from the contrast fabric. So I use triangle paper also to make these, and I do have a video on how to sew with this triangle paper. We'll pop up a link to that. I will just give a real quick explanation right here, but if you want more of an explanation on how to use this triangle paper, you can look at that video. And you just kind of start by placing your dark fabric right side up, your light fabric so that the right sides are together, light fabric on top, and then you put your triangle paper for charms on top of that. And if you want to pin it, that really does help when you go over to the sewing machine. You sew on the dotted lines, and then you cut on the straight lines. And so I've already sewn this one, and I'm going to show you quickly how to cut this one. Okay, so when I trim these, I just want to show you quickly, I like to trim around the 4 outer edges first. And so I use a ruler and my rotary cutter, and I just trim off each of the 4 sides. This just makes it so that I don't have to trim these edges when they're in smaller pieces. So it does save a little bit of time. Okay, and after I've trimmed the outer edges, I will trim the 2 horizontal and vertical edges. And I usually try to just kind of keep these together or use a rotating cutting mat so I can cut them at the same time. And then after that, you'll have one more cut on each square that will separate it into 2 half square triangles. These actually don't have to be as precise because this is just, you're cutting where the seam allowance is, and so this one, it's not as important to be accurate, but okay. So, and then what you do is, I think I forgot to mention, when you're stitching on these dotted lines, lower your stitch length to a 1.5. That makes it super easy to tear the triangle paper off. So you just kind of pinch, put your thumb right on that stitch line, and that paper will tear right off. I usually do this when I'm watching television. I'll take a whole bunch of these down and tear the paper off. So the other thing that I probably should show you is I press them actually before removing the paper. So I'll put the paper side down and put my iron here and press it so that I've already got it pressed when I remove the paper, and that seems to make it also a little bit better. And then after that, you're just going to trim the little edges, the dog ears off. So that's just an easy way to do it. I use this method when I'm making 8 or more from the same fabric, or when the triangles are very, very small, like in the Christmas version. Okay, so I've already made the triangles for the missing section of our block here. And I'm going to get a little design board to lay this out on so that I can lay it out and then carry it to the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm just going to lay this out on my design board so that none of the pieces shift around while I'm heading over to the sewing machine. I had my squares already cut to size. This has a slight little pattern on it, so I have to make sure I've got the right side up. And then I'm just going to place my triangles. Make sure I get everything the correct way. Okay, so I've got those all laid out, and so now I'm just going to go take them over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew each row together, and then I will press each row in a different direction so that the seams will nest. And I'm going to go ahead when I'm over there. This is pretty straightforward. So after I sew the 4 rows, I'm going to sew those rows together and press those seams open. So I'll head over to the sewing machine and do that and be right back. Okay, so I am back from the sewing machine and the iron. I have this one sewn and pressed. And so now I'm ready to sew my blocks together. You know, this block is just really made up of 4 individual blocks sewn together to make the 12-inch block. And then what it will do is it'll make this fun little, you know, secondary design in the center. And then you'll have kind of that going on also. So I will go sew this together and come back and let you take a quick look at it and just give you a few more pieces of information. Okay, I'm back from sewing and pressing this, and I just wanted to show you I actually did kind of switch the position of the blocks. I decided I wanted the red and the coral just kind of diagonal, and then the blue and the yellowish green diagonal. So I did kind of switch that order just a little bit up, but you can look at the back. I think it's always good to look at the back and see the pressing. So yeah, the rows were pressed in alternating directions, but then the seams between the rows were pressed open. And as I sewed the 4 units together, I also pressed those seams open, and I did the same thing on the little block. So I hope you enjoyed making this. You can get the pattern download from my blog today, and I can't wait to start seeing these showing up. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial for the February block of the month. You will need to go to my blog to download the pattern, but there is a link in the description below that will take you right to the blog post that has the pattern download. I also have the triangle papers linked that I mentioned if you are wanting to use those for, they work great for the 6-inch block or the 12-inch block. And I believe I will also have a link back to the January block, so if you're just joining in and you want to go back, you can still go back and get the January pattern and watch the January block video as well. And we will be back again with another tutorial for the March block sometime. I believe I've been doing these the first Thursday of the month, so check for it then. And if you like this video, we would love it if you would share it with a friend, hit the subscribe button, and thanks so much for stopping by.